to digital tools. Over to Rainer.
Thank you very much, Rob, for that kind introduction. My name is Rainer Herzog. I am working for admedicum, and at admedicum taking basically care of pretty much everything which concerns digital solutions, digital services, or digital projects. Now, for those of you who don't know admedicum, we are a Cologne-based company, and we help the industry and other healthcare players and healthcare stakeholders when it comes to developing patient engagement strategies and unfolding and implementing also their patient engagement activities across very many sectors and across very many activities. What do we want to talk about today? Co-creating digital solutions for rare and complex diseases. So, some of you might think digital solutions again, what's new? And there are so many discussions about digital solutions. What we want to do today is take it a little bit from a different angle. So not talking about technical aspects, not talking about, IT as such or features, not even DIGAs or something like that. We want to take it strictly from the patient perspective. And again, a lot of you might think, the discussions on putting patients in the center of healthcare is there for quite a while. Still, very few things really happen to make that statement become true. Now, here again, the difference is we really walk the talk. And we will show you as we go along through that interview how we did it and how we really, engaged patients in developing our solution that we're also going to demonstrate to you. Now, talking about patient engagement, I'm very happy and very grateful to have Bernd Rosenbichler with me today. And Bernd is a father of a child suffering from a disease called Alström syndrome. Perhaps, Bernd, if you could say a couple of words on yourself, on the disease, what it is. I think not everybody knows what really it is. And, go a little bit through, your experience, the difficulties, the pain you've going through in the struggles, in being a father of a child which really has that disease. So if you just could say, some words on, your experience there.
Of course, thanks first of all for inviting me to that interview, Rainer. And also thanks a lot for our co-creation that we did so far. It's really encouraging and motivating to see in such a position that not only I am in, but basically millions of people are in, that you can find partners to work with and really take things forward. Looking at the disease or in general, the situation that either people being affected or their kind of whatever parents that try to care are in is very simple to explain, especially if you're talking about a rare disease like it is in our case. Alström is a rare or even ultra rare disease. So if you, for example, take Germany, there's maybe 20 people that we know that are being affected by this disease. So if you're talking rare, this falls true as well for any form of information that you're getting about such a disease. And if I'm looking back to we found out about it, it started in a quite typical way, I would say. Firstly, it took about 4 years to figure out what the problem is, what the disease really is, because you're looking at many symptoms, but not many people know what to do with that symptoms. And once you know about it, I think that's also quite common. Then you end up in Wikipedia and start searching for information, start asking people that you know who could help you. And you can imagine that apart from the situation that you're in, which is kind of a high pressure to everybody being affected, to the whole environment, not getting any information that are really useful is one of the biggest challenges that you're facing there. And coming back to our Alström syndrome, one of the big issues there, and that's also quite common for many rare diseases, that you simply do not know enough. There isn't enough research knowing what exactly the reason or the problems can be. All the symptoms are quite different between patients. There isn't so much research that you could say, okay, there's a certain typical path to follow. So many organs or parts of the human body are actually affected. It's the eyes, it's the hearing, it's or literally all the organs. You're talking about diabetes and so on and so forth. So it's extremely complex, and it makes it even more difficult to really get a hold on any information, I have to say. And that falls true, I think, for many people who are usually able to get information of any kind. But taking it one step further, it's not always the case that people being affected, whatever, speak a different language, have access to whatever type of media, do have a network that they can rely on. So for these people, it's even more difficult, to, at any stage of a disease, to get basically the information or the support that you are looking for and that you're actually desperately relying on to support whoever is affected.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, for sharing with us your reflections on that. I mean, that perfectly matches with, what we are experiencing when we talk to patients and also patient organizations, and we do that a lot in our work. So, these people, going to the doctor, then, confronted with a diagnosis, and then, you don't really know what's happening because it drops on you like, coming out of nowhere. And then most people actually go home and then try to sit down in the internet and find, information, and, being overwhelmed a lot of times and being lost, really. I remember, in our early days, we talked about that picture of, the patient being in a maze, being kind of really completely lost.
Yep.
in that situation, and sort of trying to find, where do I get information? What is a good information, and which one is right and which one is wrong? And that really, exactly what also you said, Bernd, that really was the motivation for us to sit down and think about creating a platform, which we called then, as we went on, Patient Navigator, that helps patients and relatives and family in that situation to better find their way around. And as they go along through that disease process, actually try helping them to find good information, tangible information, really advice and support that is validated and that is good, and that information that they can really, really rely on. We call that platform Patient to Care, or that solution Patient to Care. It's to a large part a digital platform, an information platform, which basically works with artificial intelligence components. We created that first version of Patient to Care with the German Society for Muscular Diseases, and we put four neuromuscular diseases basically on there. But before we show to you how that works in detail, Rob, if you can, perhaps show a slide just to let you know how, Patient to Care, really works. And
maybe have a look at this picture, because I really like it. It's sometimes, when I'm trying to explain to other people the problem, it's at the end of the day, it's so simple, because everybody can imagine how it feels if you have whatever, even if it's a common disease, you never know what to do. If you look at the complexity of our health system and simply translate it into that picture, I think it's easy to understand why we've taken this picture to simply show the challenge. And what I sometimes really like for myself as well is to create kind of analogies that are super easy for everybody to understand. It's sometimes I take the example of owning a car. Everybody of us is it's the most normal thing on earth that if you have any problem, you go somewhere and somewhere checks the car and tells you what is right or what is wrong. And you would never go anywhere, having the engine checked, the lights checked, whatever, and all separately. And for each and everything, you have to ask who would be the best to have a look at it. So it's on the one side, there are so many things in life that are super simple, super easy, super straightforward. But whenever it comes to our health, we end up in such a situation. Although, and I think that's what you're going to show us now, there could be some quite smart and easy fixes to it.
That's right. And it's not really rocket science. I mean, how does patient to care work really? It's, as I said, it's a very simple web-based platform that everybody can access by simply calling up the website and plugging in questions they have around the disease. And so, that's one thing patient to care does, providing that information platform to people, wanting to learn about the disease and having all those questions about the disease. So it's kind of a first access for those people having questions. And then it also, in the second step, is able to point patients or users of patient to care to any information that is relevant, that lies within care providers. For example, other personal support sites, issues around social security, issues around healthcare payment and reimbursement, or even is able to point you to digital health applications which might be useful. So it's not only giving you an answer to your question, but it's also pointing you towards other reliable sources of information where, if you want, you can find more precise and more in-depth information or support on really various issues. And that sources of information might come, as you see on that slide, from different parts and different entities in the healthcare system. And of course, we make sure that it's all validated and good quality information.
I think that's also extremely important information if we're talking about a disease, if we're talking about information about a disease. Just in brackets, just the disease, it's only a small part of the whole journey that you're going through. And at the end of the day, and I think that's the basis as well of your tool, you need to do really a deep and detailed analysis of a simple patient journey, because at the end of the day, in many cases, a lifelong journey that people are going through, where you have certain stages that you're running through. And in these certain stages, you need certain different information. You need information you would have never thought that you would ever need them, If you suddenly end up with a child with a rare disease in this case, which then is disabled, where do you get all the supports that you need? How do you get these supports? And so on and so forth. What about life planning, that there are simply, or as simple as that, there are different life concepts than most of us know. So even there, you need some guidance and so on. So it's so important really to not only look at certain parts of this journey or just at the disease as it is, but really at let's call it the whole value chain, or this whole journey that people are going through, and take them at the hand as good as possible.
That's right. And coming now to showing you how it really works. That is a screenshot basically of the website you will see when you call up patienttocare.com, and you can of course try it out for yourself. Just call up patienttocare.com, and then you can start playing around and plugging in questions. At the moment, as I mentioned before, this is a platform for neuromuscular diseases. We have what we developed with the German Society for Muscular Diseases. We have ALS, myositis, SMA, and FSHD, all neuromuscular diseases on the website, and the solution will be able to provide answers to questions all around those 4 diseases, which means really disease relevant questions or closer disease related questions, but also then more common questions and answers on where can I find, tools, how do I deal with Social Security, can I work? And, perhaps Rob, you can, are you able to, show us sort of a live impression of that website?
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's take a look together and just put in a few sample questions and see how that goes. That should be interesting. So first off, I switched it to English as I'm a native English speaker. And then I saw this that I can ask some questions. So I'm kind of curious about ALS. It's a disease that's been talked about a lot recently. So yeah, tell me some symptoms of ALS. Okay, so it's talking about the first symptoms where they're appearing, muscle atrophy and weakness. It looks like. Ooh, as the disease is progressing, that's right. There's a lot of loss of movement and ability to speak and swallow are added. Reiner, for more information, if I click here and see symptoms of ALS, where am I going?
Yeah, you would most probably be going to a different source, a site of information, which has more in-depth information, which is certainly going to be in German, because that has been developed for Germany, with all the information being in there based on the German healthcare system and based on German websites. So you could click on that, but you would be directed to a German website. And of course, when you go to other market areas, translating the language as such is one thing, which we did, but then you would have to plug in the content specific for, I don't know, England or France or Italy, wherever you want to go, or Spain. You would have, of course, to look for that specific country content, and adapt it, of course, to those specific country needs, which we would do as we would go along into other market areas, of course. But at the moment, this version is basically designed or has been designed for the German market.
Right. I'm going to ask another question. Where can I find a physiotherapist? Oh, that's because I spelled it wrong. That's why. So looks like probably if I spell it right, they might understand.
Right.
Oh, there you go. That seems pretty practical to right away find physical therapy places.
Yeah, that has been an excellent question, by the way, Rob, because it shows that you can really, this is really hands-on information. You are asking for a physiotherapist, and the solution tells you, okay, tell me where you are, or I provide you with a list of wherever you are. You can easily identify available physiotherapists there. So you see, that the solution or patient care gives you an answer, but it also always directs you to more in-depth and more practical, and more hands-on information if you want.
Got it. Gunther was chiming in on the comments, and I think now is a good time to ask his question. How can you validate the quality of the information in rare diseases? Patients on other continents might have useful insights. How do you get those into your platform? So maybe you could just talk again about how this current version is, so far just designed for Germany or German language speakers, in mind. And what we're showing in English here is more of the proof of concept, but of course, as I think you mentioned earlier, would really need to be adapted to the local situation in each country. So can you talk more about the validation of information and what that process was like?
Sure. We basically worked for this version. We worked very closely with the German Association for Neuromuscular Diseases. I mentioned that before, the DGM, and anything we put on the website or as a piece of content, is going through DGM. So we make sure that that co-creation with a patient organization uh, um, is is basically laid out to the extent that the patient organization in that case is our quality gatekeeper, so to say. So that is again a good example of we're engaging with a patient organization, because that patient organization, we can be sure that we have a good and reliable quality information that we can retrieve from that patient organization. So everything we do is going basically, or is going through that patient organization. We don't create new content, but we use existing one, from trustful sources. I hope that answers the question.
I think that's maybe to add on that. That's really a big opportunity as well for a disease like Alström, where you have a lot of information, but it's so, say, uneven distributed over the world. So in any corner of the world, you find certain information. So we, as a kind of patient organization or patient representatives, see it as our task, to get a hold of on this information, to make sure that we have access to whatever is relevant or also validated for our disease. And then we can provide it into that system, do the translations that we need in order to make sure that everybody, wherever he or she is, has access to the latest information on such a disease. I think that's one of the absolute big advantages and opportunities of that system.
Absolutely.
And like Rainer said, that's a perfect example for co-creating. If kind of we provide the right content and Rainer, you provide the right system, I think then we're on the right track to make it
Yes,
very
absolutely.
simple.
Absolutely. Two or three things which I would like to add. You've seen that if you type in if the system doesn't understand a question or can't cope with the question or doesn't know the answer, then the system will tell you so. And we will also have sort of a human interface to it. So if everybody has a question, if anybody has a question, where the answer is not sufficient or not good enough, that person can always go back and contact us through a second line support system. So we make sure that nobody's really left alone when he or she doesn't get an appropriate answer. So it's also that blend of digital and human based support that we can feature with the platform.
That's right.
I also told you that and you've seen that we developed it for those 4 neuromuscular diseases with DGM, and of course it's our goal to use the platform for more diseases. And in that context, I think, Bernd, we initiated our discussions because at one stage we shown the whole thing to you, and you said, "Wow, this is fantastic. We should do it for Alström." And perhaps you can tell us a little bit also about why you think this would be so beneficial for Alström.
Mm-hmm. That's certainly, I think, is it's basically the answer, and a little bit talked about it before already. First of all, or what you can see here basically is a kind of the patient journey, or many of the things that are relevant for, like I said, for people being in a certain situation of a disease, being it at the beginning or living with a disease. So there is a extremely high demand for all this kind of information. And at the end of the day, what I'm really strongly believing in, and you talked about in the beginning, patient centricity, and it's we are using these buzzwords a lot, but at the end of the day, what is patient centricity? For me, it's to make sure that really everybody, and that may sound a little bit too visionary, but everybody has the equal opportunity to get the treatment information that he or she deserves. that's what we need to make sure at the end of the day. And I see that as kind of an ecosystem, where you put yourself into the middle and say, okay, what are the things that I really need in a certain situation? And you can do that. And I think at the end of the day, you need to do it in a kind of virtual and physical combination to really thinking of patients being like the end consumer or customer. What do they need at what stage? And this approach or your approach is exactly for me the answer in the virtual world, that we start working now, putting the patient into the middle, trying to understand what are really the stages people are running through, and how can we make sure that at any stage these people get exactly what they need. And not only doing it for one or two diseases, but really building up, sorry, at the end of the day, thousands of ecosystems that kind of help each other. You may have certain information that are relevant for many diseases. You may have certain specific information. And that's also kind of the next step. I think that's easily possible with such a system that's learning, that's getting better and better, and that hopefully can provide for much more diseases than just the two that we are talking about now, the right answers at the right time. And it's at the end of the day, everybody who is looking at that or who is listening, I think will immediately find a situation where people had exactly this question, what am I going to do next? How am I going to manage this situation? Where do I find the right people, and so on and so forth? And I think it's most of the time it's a hassle, and that's what we're going to try to end here. And I think Alzheimer's is the perfect disease, so to say, to start with, because it's extremely complex. There's a lot of possibilities or information that you can provide. And I'm sure if it works for us and for the DGM, of course, it will work for many others as well.
Thanks, Bernd, for that insight again. I mean, it really comes down to my next point. That was a perfect bridging almost, because you mentioned, Bernd, that of course this can be an ecosystem for many diseases, and if I get you correctly, you also said we should build a community of different stakeholders around that, and that could be an ideal platform almost, or center point for building such a community. And I think this is also pretty much of how we see the future and how we see patient to care in all its different aspects, and hopefully many users in the future, because I think we think actually we need to put that forward, or to drive that forward in the context of that community or alliance, if you may call it. And one key partner in that future journey is for sure patients, of course, and patient organizations, for the reasons we already mentioned. Last but not least, also for the content and the experience that we wish to obtain from those patient organizations. And again, it's pretty much around existing content, existing experience, and not about creating tons of things newly or on a new basis. So patient organizations are for us, of course, a core alliance partner when we go forward, but also other stakeholders in the healthcare system, such as, for example, as we put it there, health insurers, because health insurers, they have they have a huge potential user base, of course, and an audience that they could actually plug into such an ecosystem when it comes to issues such as self-management, or even prevention, which is for many of these health insurers one big issue at this point in time. And of course we would love to have them in, as we believe that could do a lot of good for that audience and for the goals those health insurers or payers have. But also then, we're talking about life science companies, as many of those life science companies, of course, have established therapy and care regimens for their drugs and diseases, and they own part of the treatment pathway, if you like. So, it would be natural, for them to say, okay, we look beyond the strict therapy or drug pathway into, providing a much more wider or community care context. And I think to that extent, of course, life science companies, could of course play an important role, as could of course be application developers. Because I think you might think of a number of applications, of digital applications that might be existing, or surely are still existing, or already existing, to support patients and relatives for many aspects of their diseases, and help them to better manage their diseases. So this is a nutshell. What I want to say is that we want to drive that forward. We cannot do it on our own, of course, and it wouldn't make sense to do it on our own, because I think sort of the power and the potential unfolds in a community aspect, in an alliance aspect, and sense of true sense of the meaning as we go along. And this is what we actually strive for. So maybe in that context, Bernd, some concluding words from you, or perhaps also I might call a call to action to all those people who are listening into us. What would you tell to them? Perhaps also in terms of supporting us or motivating to participate in these kinds of alliance or community building things.
Basically, there's a couple of things that are coming to my mind thinking of that. First of all, providing any feedback that's possible to what we are doing there, because overall, and I think that's your goal as well as my goal, what we want to do is make life easier for especially people being in a situation that's difficult enough. I think that's the almost overarching thing, or question, or maybe call to action to comment and give feedback on what people think of such a solution, and actually any other idea that could get us even faster to move forward, or whatever to incorporate in such a system. That's quite an important one. The other thing, it's very operational. We are now thinking of really getting into a kind of accelerated start of a pilot of the system, because I think the best thing is to try things and to feel them when they start living. So what we are really aiming for now is to develop it as soon as possible in a very small scale solution, but that shows the first potential such a system has. And of course, if you're doing that, basically we need a lot of support. One is to test such a system. So that's very easy and operational. And at some point, maybe I'll even use LinkedIn, to ask people, come on, join us, test the system, and ask questions that you would ask if you had such a situation. I think it's easy to imagine for everybody. We might very operational as well. We might need some support in translating things, because that's important. And that's what also our aim is, to provide any information, at least in certain different languages, so that people can understand it. So that's something where we might need some support. And at the end of the day, somebody has to pay for it as well. And so coming back to a point of financing it or donations, that's also something that we need, because overall, this is something that will cost some money as well. So I think it's an extremely important and purposeful project where we could also use that kind of support, and where our non-profit organization, I think, is the perfect place to support such a system. So it's many things where we can get, or where we can need support. And like you said, we are collaborating, and I think collaboration is true for everybody being interested in such a system, everybody being in a similar situation, or maybe not yet in such a situation, but saying, hey, it can always happen that your life, and I really can tell you that can come overnight, that your life is suddenly a different life. And I think then you are more than happy if you have certain things, that you can rely on, that that are helping you in such a situation. So I think it's quite easy maybe for everybody to understand why any form of support is good, and anything that gets us a little bit closer to this kind of really patient centralized approach of directly helping people is a great step forward. And so any positive, and that's really important, any positive comment helping us doing the next step is greatly appreciated, up to the point that we also take any donation, of course, to finance it.
Thanks
Has
very
to
much.
be said as well, you know.
Thanks very much, Bert, for this clear and very to the point call to action. I can only reiterate on what and strengthen what Bernd said. There was not much more that I can add to it. I think that has been pretty much clear. So we have still a couple of minutes left.
We have some questions.
Yes, if you have some questions, we can use the time.
I got some
questions.
I got some for you. I hope you got some answers.
Me too.
Because not all are softball questions, and these are again coming from Gunther. Thanks again for being so active here, Gunther. How can you avoid that patient to care and this initiative is just not another island solution? And I guess going along with that, how do you get the information about patient to care out to patients? So maybe Rainer and Bernd, you could comment on that.
I can start, Bernd, if you like. I mean, that very good question. We get that question actually a couple of times. How do we want to make sure that patient to care really reaches and goes out to people? We are working on different angles as far as this point are concerned. Of course, we strive to use the multipliers, those people in the healthcare system that can help us really to broadcast the message, get it out. And one very good example, of course, is sitting here with us, Bernd, who is doing a great job in actually, talking to the community, talking to key opinion leaders, to care centers, to treatment centers, to really get the message out there, and also on an international level, by the way. So, our plan is to really, work with all those stakeholders and the multipliers and the ambassadors, really to get it out as good as possible. And, trust, I think, Bernd, is an important element, in there. So we are not talking about a solution that is produced by a company who wants to reap a commercial benefit at the end of the day for it, but we come from a different angle. And I think that is, giving us a lot more of trust and a lot more of edge to really, communicate it in a trustful way to the community.
Yeah. I think that there isn't so much to add apart from what I said before, why it's so important to simply start with it and start showing to as many people as possible how it will look like, because I think that's the best, or that helps a lot to communicate, and we're doing a lot of communication. I think we all try to be active in working with others and sharing these kind of things. So the sooner we have something to show, the sooner we have something, exactly like you said, that we can build trust with, I think the easier it really is to get the message across and to invite people to join us and create a positive example, create a positive pilot that hopefully many will appreciate and follow.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see that being the best way to finance the growth of patient support into other disease areas like Alström syndrome? Because Gunther's other question was kind of asking about the business model and the financing. And Bernd, you mentioned earlier about donations, and of course you being involved with the Alstrom Germany patient organization, and being a nonprofit that can take those kind of donations and then use it on projects like this. How else is this going to work financially? Because we all saw the opportunity, I think, of the benefit that it can bring to patients. But of course, this is a world with costs and dollars and cents. So how do we solve that challenge?
I think
Both of you.
I think the best answer is twofold. This for me is a typical project that in the beginning especially, and I most probably over time as well, has to be financed literally by donations for a very simple reason. If whatever, we would take one or two exclusive partners to finance it, I think there would be a high risk that the information that we provide there wouldn't be perceived as very neutral. And I think the most important is that we provide to whoever uses the system the best information that we can provide, and not the best information that is being whatever paid for in a certain sponsoring agreement. So to making sure that people being engaged in a whatever non-profit organization, taking care of these kind of issues, that they can really do their job in providing these kind of information, unbiased, neutral, and really quality checked. I think that's the kind of perfect, the perfect example for why donations here are so important, and not kind of making it a business model in terms of inviting companies to say buy their stake and providing their information in such a system. I would see that as a big risk, and most probably, we wouldn't be perceived as very neutral if we would do that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
as you mentioned before, Bernd. I mean, one has to be fair in saying, building a system, maintaining it, hosting it, and everything that comes with it costs money, of course, and that's a simple reality. But the as you say, that our goal is not to sort of sell data or reap money in any other ways from it. That would be stupid. Um, and to that extent, I think what you mentioned in terms of that more altruistic donation thing, I think is at this point in time, most probably the answer we can give to that question, Rob.
Great, thanks so much. I think we should wrap it up for today, as we're right on time. And really appreciate everyone who joined and tuned in, and those that commented and put nice comments there, showing that they were engaged. We really appreciate that. Thanks so much to Bernd for taking the time to not only work with admedicum on this, but also to do this LinkedIn Live and kind of share your observation and feelings for the wider community. Rainer and Bernd, I want to give it to you for any last comments. And thanks again, everybody, for joining. We'll have another LinkedIn Live about patient participation in HTA coming up in the first week of December. So hope to see some of you there again. Rainer, last thoughts?
Yeah, I will leave the famous last words to Bernd. So I just want to say, thanks very much to all who listened in. Thank you much to you guys, to Bernd and Rob, for supporting us there and supporting the mission. As I said before, just if you like, just go to patient to care, play around with it, see how it it works, and we would be delighted to hear back from you, and ideally getting your support and your ideas and so looking forward to hopefully some ideas, some input from you, and last words to you, Bernd.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Thanks a lot for working with us and giving us the opportunity to kind of share our story here. And thanks to everybody listening. And all I can say is challenge us, be part of this journey. It's for all of us, it's kind of a new journey, and the more people are joining, the more travelers we have, I think the better the end product will be. So that would be my wish. And I think, yeah, stay excited, stay tuned, stay curious about what we're going to achieve together. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
And have a good evening.
Have a good
Have a nice
evening.
evening, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.